The US Army must rethink the tactics of using tanks in modern warfare, which is undergoing radical changes due to the emergence of attack drones.
I actually, Привет всем. Welcome back, everybody. I'm actually not sure if this is true or not, but let's just see.
In infantry weapons, writes former US Special Forces non-commissioned officer Steve Balestrieri on the pages of 1945. As of today, the US Army has about 4,650 tanks, half of which are in reserve. Unlike most countries in the world, the US Army currently...
I believe Russia has more tanks, but they're not that good.
...operates only one type of tank, albeit in several modifications, the M1 Abrams.
Yeah.
Balestrieri admits that against the backdrop of the war in Ukraine, where both sides have lost many tanks to man-portable anti-tank missiles and...
I have heard that the M1 Abrams, they sent those to Ukraine before, but they're very kind of difficult to maintain compared to older Soviet Union tanks. I think that's true, but I think Ukrainians are learning pretty quick how to maintain those tanks as well. There's obviously parts that the United States needs to ship to replace certain parts on the tank, but they're learning quick.
Kamikaze drones, there are loud statements about the end of the tank era. At the same time, the American M1 Abrams and German Leopards, which are in service with the Ukrainian armed forces, are no exception. However, the author of the publication believes that it is too early to write off the tanks. However, he notes that the astronomical losses of the Russians in armored vehicles are explained not only by the dexterity of the Ukrainian infantry, but also by the gross errors of the Russians. In this context, he recalls the habit of the occupiers to drive tanks in large columns, making them a convenient target for the Ukrainians.
I see.
The US and NATO use armored vehicles in combined...
Basically, they're saying the warfare has changed forever with drones, so the United States is rethinking their tank reserves. Maybe it's not a good investment after Ukraine-Russia war. So they might just give a lot of the tanks to Ukraine and then just replenish those with something else, maybe drones, more drones. I don't know.
Arms combat, supported by infantry, artillery and air power. Their firepower and mobility remain devastating. Combined arms warfare is complex and requires a lot of training to master, Balestrieri writes. At the same time, the military expert admits that on the modern battlefield, tanks should preferably be a little smaller, lighter, faster and easier to use. And although anti-tank weapons have become extremely effective today, the next generation of armored vehicles will already have protection and countermeasures to protect against anti-tank missiles and drones. The new tanks of the future will have more barbecues to counter drones. They will have lasers and other weapons to shoot down drones and missiles on approach. They will have standard electronic warfare systems to jam UAVs, Balestrieri believes. So how many tanks does the army need? They need new armor, but what about the 4,650 current main battle tanks? They're still going to be used for now. So right now, the US Army has too many tanks and too few tanks. He concludes, as media wrote, after 3 years of a full-scale war in Ukraine, the intensity of fighting on the front has not abated, but the Russians have begun to run out of armored vehicles. In particular, the aggressor is using fewer and fewer T-72 tanks, which were the basis of its tank fleet. However, for Ukraine, the losses of armored vehicles were also tangible and painful, especially in the Kursk direction, where the losses of combat equipment of both sides were almost equal. Hundreds of Abrams tanks could be sent to Ukraine if the US renews its tank base.
That would be big news for Ukraine if they can get those tanks. I mean, that'll be a big help. I mean,
In a joint military operation with the United States, 17 alleged members of the Tren de Aragua and MS-13 gangs were transferred from the U.S. to the high-security prison in Tecoluca, El Salvador. This operation is another step in the fight against terrorism and organized crime, President Nayib Bukele posted on X. According to Associated Press,
I do like that president, Nayib Bukele. He's Bukele. He's an awesome president.
Deportations took place despite U.S. District Judge Brian E. Murphy temporarily blocking the Trump administration Friday from deporting people who have exhausted legal appeals to countries other than their own without first being allowed to argue that it would jeopardize their safety. On Wednesday, U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem visited the Terrorism Confinement Center where Venezuelans who the Trump administration alleges are gang members have been held since their removal from the United States. Noem's trip to the prison, where inmates are packed into cells and never allowed outside, comes as the Trump administration seeks to show it is deporting people it describes as the worst of the worst. The Trump administration is arguing in federal court that it was justified in sending the Venezuelans to El Salvador, while activists say officials have sent them to a prison rife with human rights abuses while presenting little evidence that they were part of the Venezuelan Tren de Aragua gang. The Venezuelans were removed from the U.S. this month after Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 and said the U.S. was being invaded by the Tren de Aragua gang. The Alien Enemies Act gives the president wartime powers and allows non-citizens to be deported without the opportunity to go before an immigration or federal court judge. A central outstanding
I do think that's fair. I mean, I'm not against that.
Question about the deportees' status is when and how they could ever be released from the prison as they are not serving sentences. The Trump administration hasn't identified who was deported or provided evidence that they're gang members.
Well, I'm gonna pause it there. I don't know why they start talking about the gains. I was thinking this video is gonna be about Abrams for the whole video, but it wasn't. They cut into two different things. They kind of tricked me. I'm sorry. But it's speaking for the tanks that might go to Ukraine. I think that'll be a really big win for Ukraine, especially if those American tanks are just sitting there and collecting dust. I think Ukrainians can get a better use out of them than United States, and the United States needs to replenish new tanks with new technologies that are based on something about drones. You know, that changes everything. Those tanks are just too big and bulky. They cost a lot of money. It takes a long time to fix them up. And it's just not worth it in today's day and age. So I think United States, the tanks are outdated system, as we know. We saw this in the Russia-Ukraine war. It just doesn't work. Tanks are good, like you still need them, but they're not as important as they used to be because of the drones. That's my take on that. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section about this whole thing. I know there's been a lot of talks about a lot of different things in the world, and the world feels a little bit more unstable right now, especially with the tariffs the Trump administration is pushing, and there's just a lot of uncertainty in the world right now. So let me know what you guys think, and let me know what video or you want me to react to next. And as always, підпишись, subscribe, it's free, and we'll see you guys later. До побачення.